Hello, I'm Osvaldo Sala, President of the Ecological Society of America. First, to you, members of ESA, thanks for having elected me to this position. It has been a great honor to be president of our society. ESA has been my intellectual home for all my professional career. This is where I met the most interesting people and where I learned about the newest and coolest ideas. Inspiring ESA talks and posters led me to many aha moments when it dawned on me, for example, that concepts standard in soil ecology could easily be applicable to plants in drylands. I'm equally grateful for candid, generous comments after a talk of my own that sharpened future papers or saved me from an eventual public embarrassment. I remember dearly the casual ESA nurtured encounters that led to fruitful, long-lasting collaboration. It was at ESA where I met influential mentors. It was at ESA where I met my best mentees, who are all ready to challenge existing paradigms. ESA es mi casa. Although I thank you for the trust you bestow on me by electing me president of ESA, I have to recognize and share candidly with you all that in hindsight, it turned out to be a huge responsibility, the magnitude of which I hadn't fully grasped. I remember vividly waking up at 2 a.m. in our Phoenix home, coming downstairs to ponder how to best handle this responsibility. Being the first Hispanic president of ESA in 105 years of existence was not easy. Being the first foreign-born president was not easy. It was not easy because I had to show to a broad audience that we are all equally capable of successfully leading a society like ESA, regardless of our ethnic background, the color of our skin, or our accent. I felt that there was room for no mistakes because a flawless administration was necessary for breaking ground for future generations of leaders. I could not fail, even slightly, because only a successful and impactful administration would encourage future generations of leaders to pursue this path. Again, it wasn't easy. I faced unexpected and subtle hurdles that I did not see others facing. I also received unexpected support and generous guidance from others. Those were the moments that forced me down the stairs to contemplate my options, or compelled me to pause a bike ride to sit on the side of the road and plan my actions. The Ecological Society of America is an extraordinary organization. During my tenure, ESA has faced the tsunami as the rest of the world. A pandemic that spread not only illness and death, but also economic collapse and a sense of insecurity all over the world. In the US, the health crisis was exacerbated by the unveiling of underlying racism. ESA had to respond to this current crisis, and in my opinion, it has done so admirably. First, I need to thank the ESA staff led by Catherine O'Riordan, who in a few months pivoted from a planned in-person annual meeting into the first completely virtual meeting. I also need to thank the President-elect, Kathy Weathers, and past President Laura Huneke, who provided constant guidance and became an invaluable sounding board. Finally, the members of our society who reached us through Twitter and through the established structures such as committees, chapters, and sections. More than 3,600 people have already registered to our first ever fully virtual annual meeting. That almost 20% of the participants come from outside the US is a record for ESA meetings and a testament to the potential for inclusiveness of this new format. All 1,700 oral presentations, all workshops, and 1,100 posters have been pre-recorded and uploaded to the meeting platform. You're able to view these presentations at any time, and you have access to view this content for 3 months following the meeting. Additionally, you can also interact with your colleagues in real time through a full schedule of live content each day, which include 3 live panel discussions, 20 dedicated networking events, and Q&A for each of our 5 plenary talks. The new format has advantages and disadvantages relative to the previous format. I'm sure we all miss the personal interactions and casual, unscripted exchanges, as well as the free-flowing conversations, typical of our traditional gatherings. But on the other hand, the new format is more inclusive because ESA can actively involve ecologists who might not otherwise have participated in the past because of a scarcity of resources for travel and inability to commit to a week-long meeting or other constraints. As we learn about this new type of meeting, the society is observing and engaging the membership's responses. ESA has also responded swiftly to the bursting of racist undercurrents that we have recently experienced. ESA remains committed to a much greater participation of Black, Indigenous, and people of color at all stages of their career, from undergraduate, graduate, and postdocs to professionals in academic and non-academic settings. And we are working to achieve this goal, which we see as a moral imperative. On this front, we have developed a draft plan for action against racism that I will be presenting to the governing board for input and hopefully eventual endorsement on Saturday. The plan was developed with significant contribution from the Committee on Diversity and Education, led by Pam Templer. Several members of ESA staff, including Catherine O'Riordan and Teresa Murad, and of course the President-elect Kathy Weathers and past President Laura Huneke. Inclusion is a core value of ESA, and one of ESA's 5 strategic goals is to nurture a diverse community of ecology. ESA will undertake specific actions and assess their impact. We will be asking for more input from committees, sections, and the general membership before we finalize the actions items. The plan is detailed, but here I'm only listing the headings of the sections and skipping the specific actions that I will show after I receive the input and endorsement of the governing board. ESA will help leaders, volunteers, members, and staff educate themselves on the historical impacts of structural and institutional discrimination and racism. ESA will critically evaluate all programs and committees for barriers to inclusion. ESA will increase transparency of policies, selection criteria, and procedures in nominations, meetings, publications, awards, grants, and other programs. ESA will increase accountability. The success of this plan should be measurable. Collect data and document baseline conditions from ESA as well as for ecology, writ large, is critical. ESA will monitor these trends and report annually on progress in recruitment and retention. So far, I have mostly discussed short-term ESA reactions in response to an unexpected pandemic, economic collapse, and the unveiling of persistent racism. I also want to slow down and share my long-term view of the opportunities and challenges that the society will face in the coming years or decades. One case of mixed opportunity and challenge is the so-called open access, a term best used for published research that is free for everyone to use. I want to stress that in my opinion and its current use, this term is a misnomer because it does not refer to published research that is truly free to use. The name open access suggests an a priori value. Who would be for closed access? I suggest that a better description of the status quo would be to distinguish between readers paid versus authors paid. Let me explain. Under the current system, libraries pay subscriptions to publishers for journals so readers can have access to the publication. In this case, readers or the institutions pay through their library support. ESA, like many other scientific societies based in the US, partners with one of these publishers and uses subscriptions to support the society's activities that we all enjoy and depend on. The alternative model is what I call authors pay, or what is commonly and cleverly called open access. Under this model, authors pay a publication cost that vary among journals, but it can be as high as $6,000 per article. It is not free for everyone. If the author can pay, no one has access. In other walks of life, this will be defined as advertisement. In synthesis, while the research paid model excludes some readers, the authors paid model or open access clearly excludes authors, hence their potential readership. The authors paid model particularly excludes those without big grants that can pay for publication fees. The purpose of this section of my talk is not to advocate for one of the two systems, nor of the many intermediate solutions. The purpose is to highlight areas that represent potential opportunities and or challenges for ESA. You may or may not be aware that the White House had been working on an executive order of President Trump that would have lifted the embargo period of all federally funded research papers and would have represented de facto a move to the authors pay system for all scientific society journals. Such an abrupt change would have resulted in the collapse of most scientific societies in the US because they would have lost their major source of revenue. At the same time, it would have excluded all authors who cannot afford open access fees, hence stifling the diversity of content and views. Currently, the White House initiative seems to be in a hiatus. At a broad scale, the reader versus author pay duality is only one of the challenges and opportunities that we should incorporate when thinking about scenarios for ESA. And I note that scenarios are not a forecast or projection. Scenarios describe alternative pathways that in this case, our society can use to better position itself, to take advantage of potential opportunities and protect itself from adversities. Let me share my screen. Yes, I envision 4 broad scenarios that occur at the intersection of 2 orthogonal axes associated with the nature of our meetings and our publications. The first axis, the vertical one, describes the continuum between the case in which most publications remain in the domain of readers pay, with a small fraction in authors pay open access, to the other extreme, where most publications become open access. Orthogonal and independent to the publication axis is the axis related to the nature of our meetings. This axis describes a continuum from traditional in-person meeting to the 2020 meeting type, which is completely virtual. This simple exercise yields 4 alternative outcomes and all the intermediate cases. The first one is what I call business as usual, where journals remain mostly readers pay and meetings remain in person. The second one is what I call the global ESA, where meetings become virtual, reaching a broad audience located all over the world and extending the tent to all kinds of professionals. The journals become open access or writers pay, reaching a broad group of readers while limiting the access of writers and stifling alternative views. 2 intermediate scenarios are models of more regional society where either journals remain readers pay and meetings virtual, or readers or in-person meetings with open access. With this exercise, I wanted to provide a way of organizing our thoughts about the future of our society. It has been difficult for me to find time for this long-term thinking with unexpected crises popping up on an almost daily basis. And so there may be much room for refinement. In any case, this long-term view should be useful to guide our actions. I want to end this talk by thanking all of you for donations to our SEEDS program that takes students from underrepresented groups on field trips and helps attract them to ecology. Your generosity has helped us to build the Henry Golds Endowment that will assure the continuation of this program into the future. Thank you. Muchas gracias.